West Texas produces over 20 billion barrels of fracking wastewater every year. It is so salty, it scorches the land, and so toxic, it carries radioactive materials and carcinogens. Now, regulators are considering letting oil companies release this water straight into the Pecos River. That move could save industry billions, but it would leave farmers terrified for their crops, their soils, and their livelihoods. What really happens when desperate drought meets toxic economics? Produced water is the waste stream that comes up from deep underground every time oil or natural gas is extracted. For every barrel of oil pumped in West Texas, 2 to 5 barrels of this wastewater are brought to the surface. What makes produced water so hazardous is its chemical makeup. Lab tests show it contains salt concentrations 10 to 20 times higher than seawater. That level of salinity alone can scorch crops, poison soils, and render farmland unusable for years. But the dangers do not stop with salt. Mixed into the brine are volatile organic compounds, benzene, toluene, and xylene, recognized carcinogens that can evaporate into the air or seep into groundwater. Produced water also carries naturally occurring radioactive materials, known as NORM, pulled up from ancient rock layers. Radium and other radioactive particles can settle in riverbeds or accumulate in soil, persisting for decades. Heavy metals are present as well. Arsenic, lead, mercury, and barium are all found in produced water samples from the Permian Basin. Even at low concentrations, these metals can threaten human health, contaminate food crops, and poison livestock. The chemical cocktail is made even more unpredictable by the additives used in hydraulic fracturing. Fracking fluids include biocides, surfactants, corrosion inhibitors, and scale removers. Industrial chemicals designed to break apart rock and keep wells flowing. Many of these substances are proprietary, their full formulas shielded from public disclosure. What is known? Dozens of chemicals added to each well, some of them toxic in parts per billion. Every year, more than 20 billion barrels of produced water are generated in Texas alone. That is enough to fill thousands of Olympic-sized swimming pools every day. Each barrel is a potential vector for salts, heavy metals, radioactive particles, and chemical residues. When this water is injected deep underground, the contaminants are locked away, at least in theory. But if produced water is released into rivers or used for irrigation, every component in that mix has a pathway to enter the environment, the food chain, and ultimately the human body. The risks are not hypothetical. They are built into the chemistry of the water itself. Texas sits atop a sea of oil and an even greater sea of wastewater. The Permian Basin alone pumps out millions of barrels of produced water every single day, outpacing even the region's oil production. By the end of each year, more than 20 billion barrels of this toxic byproduct must be dealt with, a volume so immense it is measured in thousands of Olympic-sized pools. For decades, the solution has been to inject this wastewater deep underground, locking away salts, heavy metals, and radioactive particles in old rock formations. But that strategy is running out of room. Across West Texas, disposal wells are nearing capacity. Some sites are closed because of earthquake risks linked to deep injection, while others are simply full. The oil industry now faces a disposal crunch, with a choice: keep drilling and risk overflowing the system, or find a cheaper, faster way to get rid of the waste. The economics are blunt. Underground injection costs between $3 and $5 for every barrel of produced water. At the scale of the Permian, that adds up to tens of millions of dollars every week. As wells max out and trucking water farther afield becomes even more expensive, the industry's search for alternatives grows urgent. Discharging treated wastewater into rivers or using it for irrigation offers a tempting shortcut, one that could slash disposal costs to a fraction of current rates. Oil companies frame this move as an environmental win, promising to recycle water for drought-stricken regions and keep production booming. Behind the scenes, the real driver is money. Every dollar saved on disposal goes straight to the bottom line and fuels the next round of drilling. Industry lobbyists argue that advanced treatment technologies make river discharge safe, but the push for permits is rooted in economics, not science. With billions of barrels piling up and disposal wells filling fast, the pressure to approve new outlets is immense. State officials face mounting demands to greenlight river discharge, even as farmers and environmental scientists warn that the true costs may not show up until the damage is done. The scale of the produced water crisis and the dollars at stake ensure that the fight over Texas rivers is just beginning. Texas Pacific Water Resources points to their reverse osmosis systems as proof that produced water can be made safe, claiming their treated output is cleaner than the Pecos River itself. Company executives highlight small pilot projects where native plants thrived on irrigated plots, and technical brochures tout contaminant removal rates that sound impressive on paper. But these pilots operate on a fraction of the scale proposed for river discharge, thousands of barrels a day, not the hundreds of thousands that would be needed basin-wide. Soil chemists caution that what works in a greenhouse or a short-term field test does not guarantee safety for West Texas farmland. No multi-year studies track what happens to sodium, barium, or radioactive particles after repeated irrigation. Colorado's model, often cited by industry, tells a different story. State regulators there allow limited produced water use only under strict monitoring, with crop restrictions and ongoing soil tests. Even then, some pilot sites saw soil degradation within a few seasons. By contrast, Texas's proposals lack those guardrails, and long-term impacts remain unknown. On a ranch outside Pecos, the ground tells its own story. Salt lines creep higher every year, leaving white scars across once productive fields. For ranchers like Tom Laird, the idea of irrigating with produced water is a non-starter. He points to the cracked soil where cotton once grew and worries that another wave of salt will finish the job. Soil scientists warn that sodium from produced water can build up year after year, turning rich farmland into hard pan. Remediation, if possible at all, demands costly gypsum and more water than the region can spare. Tom refuses to risk his cattle either, uncertain what decades of chemical residues and trace metals might do to their health or the beef he sells at market. But down the road, another rancher faces a different calculation. Years of drought have dried up his wells. He is considering a test plot with treated produced water, hoping the technology is as effective as the companies promise. He knows the risks. Property values could plummet if his land is branded toxic, and buyers may steer clear for a generation. The farming community is split. Some see a lifeline, others see a slow-motion disaster. For every family, the stakes are measured in soil, livestock, and the future of their land. The showdown over produced water now lands in the hands of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. After a legislative overhaul in June 2025, TCEQ holds sole authority to decide whether recycled fracking wastewater can flow into the Pecos River. Permit applications from oil companies are stacked on regulators' desks, each promising economic relief and water for drought-stricken farms. But critics warn that once a discharge permit is granted, it is nearly impossible to revoke, even if long-term harm emerges. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller's words echo through the debate. He said, "We do not really care what the source is as long as it is good, clean water that we can grow crops with. Fracking water would be fine." His stance, favoring water quantity over quality, outrages environmental groups and divides the farming community. Meanwhile, New Mexico officials are quietly preparing legal arguments, watching the Pecos River's fate from downstream. The clock is ticking toward an early 2026 decision, with the outcome set to ripple beyond state lines and into the courts if Texas moves ahead. Right now, Texas weighs a decision with consequences far beyond its borders. Permits granted here could set a national precedent, testing how much risk we will tolerate for water, food, and profit. When the rules change for rivers, the impact ripples everywhere. What cost are we willing to accept?